What's up, guys? Ben here, bringing you another video today. We're going to break down the bracket for Major 4. We had a crazy set of qualifiers over the weekend. The bracket is set. We're going to go ahead and break it down, get my first thoughts, and we're going to break down the first set of matches on Thursday. Let's get into it. So I think my first thoughts, taking a look at this bracket, is bubble teams that we've been talking about over the last couple of weeks. And for reference, here's kind of the standings right now. They're all pretty much scattered throughout the bracket, especially on the winner's side. The only team that really didn't make it in to the winner's side was LAG. And I think even the bigger piece of it too, if we look at 9, 10, 11, Minnesota, Florida, and New York, they're all on the winner's side, sitting around actually at the bottom side of the bracket, which is hilarious. We'll get to that in a second. I think some other thoughts that I have along sort of the bubble team conversation. Thieves is sitting at the top there. I know they're sort of safe right now, but their matchups are not super easy. We'll get into that in a minute. And talking a little bit about LAG, I think didn't have the best in Major 4 qualifiers. They're right now sitting at the top end of the losers bracket, but they are going to have a tough matchup for losers round 1 on Friday. They're going to face whoever loses between London and Toronto. Right now, I don't really favor LAG in either matchup. There's a very good chance that LAG might finish top 12 of this event. They're going to need a lot of help to make it a champs. Beyond Thieves and Toronto, though, I actually think the teams that are on the bottom side of losers here, New York, Minnesota, and Florida, Boston, with Seattle and Optic being on the bottom side of losers, those are tough draws for both sets of matches. I would say of the hardest is probably the Optic draw, just because we know how good that team is on land. Boston as well and Florida might also be in trouble because Seattle did win the last event. I think my other big takeaway is looking at how the bracket's kind of broken out here. I think New York's actually got a really good chance here of making it to top 3. We'll talk about their specific matchup in a minute versus RØKKR, but they do have the home crowd going for them at King's Theater in Brooklyn. And if you talk about the teams that are sitting on the bottom side, if they do get past Minnesota, they are teams where if New York can kind of show their strengths in S&D, I see kind of a little bit of an opportunity there. New York right now in search, they're 3-3. They're playing 500 ball. New York does also have a good record against both those teams. They're 2-0 against Boston and 1-1 in Florida this year in matchup. So if New York's able to get through the Minnesota matchup, they've got a better draw than, say, Atlanta FaZe or London. And if you win your second match in winners, well, you're sitting top 3. And I think New York at that point is feeling pretty good about qualifying for champs. And finishing up the conversation about my sort of overall kind of first thoughts on this bracket and talking about sort of the bottom side of losers again. Optic and Seattle, if they win their first set of matchups, they're going to play each other for top 8. That obviously would be a banger matchup, but one of those teams is going to be tremendously disappointed in the lack of momentum that they have going forward before champs. All right, now that we kind of talked a little bit about the bracket, let's talk about the schedule and start breaking down some of these matches. My kind of first overall thoughts on the schedule, by the way, especially on Thursday. It's pretty viewership friendly. You got the EU boys playing early. My time listed here is in East Coast time, so 1:30 East Coast. That's gonna be what, 6:30 British time. That's pretty good, close to prime time. You get Minnesota and Florida sort of the follow-up before sort of the main attraction for the fans in New York. You get the Minnesota RØKKR and New York matchup, and then closing it out, another FaZe LAT showdown. We'll get to that last, but a really good way to close out what I think is probably one of the stronger sets of matches we've had on a Thursday. Well, let's hop into specific matchups here. We're going to start with the battle of EU London Royal Ravens taking on Toronto Ultra. This is the Ben Vance versus Trey showdown. Historically, this matchup has been kind of pretty lopsided in Trey's favor. I think kind of thinking about sort of how the vetoes might play out, sort of where's the strength in the map pool and game modes. I really like London's chances and hard point here. Toronto's best game mode is S&D. Control is also sort of an interesting talking point here. Toronto, not that great historically respawn, but London has been awful at control so far in this major. They're 0-5. I mean, assume they're going to win one at one point, but a real opportunity here if you're Toronto Ultra, your probably best path to win this matchup is going to be the classic 2-3-5, taking 2 S&Ds into control. I think overall, considering all of that, as much as I like the Toronto Ultra team and how well they played the last major in front of their crowd, I think the London guys are going to take this one 3-1. They're going to go ahead and actually take the control and get some momentum in that game mode going into their next matchup on the weekend. Breaking down the second matchup here, if we go from the top side of the bracket, it's actually the last match of the day and we just took a look at the schedule. It's going to be LA Thieves versus Atlanta FaZe. FaZe has dominated this matchup, and honestly, every time Kenny has had to play Simpin and BZ, it's been a real struggle. I actually think that he doesn't have a win against them since Black Ops 4, so pre-CDL, that's kind of wild. If you sort of dive in the map records in this matchup and the 4 times they played this season, Thieves are 1-5 in S&D and 1-3 in control, so they've had some success in hardpoint, but they're really struggling in 2, 3, and 5 game modes, and why Atlanta FaZe is 4-0 against them this season. Taking a look at both teams' individual forms coming in, it's not amazing, and I would say for each team, sort of the one thing they need to work on. On the FaZe side, this hasn't been the best of major cycles so far for Simpin and BZ, so them stepping up will be a big plus for the FaZe team is looking for their first event win of the season after a bunch of seconds in every major so far this season. On the Thieves side, I saw a Reddit post breaking down Team KD, and Thieves is second to last in Team KD. They've really struggled slaying overall this season, so it does not surprise me that they're there against a really talented FaZe team. I mean, candidly, Thieves are just going to have to play out. If not, it's going to be a really quick series. All of that considered, I just think FaZe is too much to handle for Thieves right now in terms of raw talent. I also think FaZe's strength in S&D control is going to shine through. I do think Thieves will go ahead and take the first map and make this interesting. Maybe we see a little Gav hardpoint action here. I got FaZe 3-1 in this matchup. Next match we're breaking down here is the New York Subliners versus the Minnesota RØKKR. Home fans are going to be excited for this one. LAN has been an interesting adventure for both these teams. These teams have a combined 2 wins at majors this season, and Minnesota has all 2 of those wins. Overall, not against each other, obviously. New York has had some LAN successes here. They did win the Pro-Am Classic at Belong Columbus, but majors has been a tremendous struggle for them. They've won 0 matches there, and that's part of the reason why they're sitting right now in 11th place in the standings. That placement aside, you got to talk about New York's form right now. They've been really good in sort of the overall slaying and hardpoint through this major cycle, the major 3 cycle. Minnesota, on the other hand, haven't been amazing at respawn. Once again, same problem as last year. Team's a solid S&D team, but the respawn has been a real struggle. I kind of calculated the map win records. Minnesota was 5-4 in hardpoint this stage, so not the worst, but not the best. I think one interesting storyline going in this match is the health of Hydra. As you see here over the weekend, he did test positive for COVID. While he did play on the match on Sunday, he was not at the facility with the rest of the team. You know, he has enough time to recover theoretically from COVID. Hopefully they don't have to use a sub, or we might see the return of Clayster to the lineup here for this match. I think overall, considering all of these factors, considering the home crowd, I have a feeling that New York's going to take this one, but this series is going to be an absolute banger. Minnesota's played some really absolute gruelers recently, especially over the weekend. I think Minnesota have what it takes to push us to a game 5, but I think New York's going to clutch up. We're going to have an absolute classic series on our hands here. All right, folks, last matchup here on Winners as we close out our predictions for the Thursday set of matches. We have the Boston Breach versus the Florida Mutineers. This is the Reese Vivid Bowl. So for context and why I said that, over the break in between Major 3 and Major 4, I guess there's a little bit of a transitional period in the Florida camp, and Reese Vivid has headed off to Boston Breach. In his stead, Florida have picked up 2 real after attempting to pick up ASIM and not really succeeding on that front. And it really hasn't been the best of times for Florida, to be honest. They've been pretty average. They kind of squeaked by this weekend by beating both LA teams. And their 2 real pickups been KD-wise, he's sitting pretty much rock bottom right now. Taking a look at the standings, Florida's sitting kind of on the bubble right now. And you got to think with 2 real having his first pro LAN in such a pressure situation, I think a lot of eyes and a lot of pressure on him to step up here and help Florida qualify for champs. On the side of Boston, they're actually had a really good stage picking up Reese. Seems like their pacing feels very fluid and fast now. They're all on the same page. They actually had a 4-1 record in this major qualifier, sitting at the top of the standings. I will say one weak point for them, though, has been S&D. They're currently 2-5 in that game mode so far in this major cycle. As much as I would like to think this series is sort of a banger, I do have Florida winning the S&D, but right now, Boston just seems the more informed team in Respawn. I think they're going to go ahead and take this one 3-1. Well, guys, that'll do it for this video. I think my kind of final thoughts here, taking a look at the bracket, is we've got a really good set of interesting matches on Thursday. We're going to see a lot of movement on the storylines of teams making it to champs. In my next video coming out later this week, we're going to chat a little bit about those bubble teams, break down their form, and I'm going to go ahead and make predictions on my teams. I think we'll go ahead and round out the top 8 for champs. If you liked the video, appreciate it if you leave a comment or click the subscribe button. Push out a lot of content on this channel, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Thank you so much.